Welcome back. I don't know what to do. I want to ask my boyfriend to marry me, but I need advice. We've been dating for 5 years. Jake is the nicest guy I've ever met. Even though he's really busy, he always puts me first. Whenever I thought he couldn't show me more love, he went above and beyond to make me feel special. But he still hasn't proposed. I'm confused. If he loves me this much, why hasn't he proposed? My friends, who didn't feel as loved as I did, were getting married, and I was left waiting. I was running out of time, but one Friday, he picked me up as usual, looking cheerful and excited. I thought that day would be when he proposed, but to my disappointment, he told me that his younger brother had set a wedding date for the next month. I felt awful because it seemed like Jake didn't see me as someone he wanted to marry. He was financially stable and had his own place. What more did he need? His excitement was because he was going to be the best man and give a speech on that day. I couldn't conceal my disappointment, so I called my best friend Sami, but she didn't answer. Feeling down, I called my aunt for comfort. She liked Jake, but thought he wasn't ready for marriage, suggesting I consider other options. I blame her for the advice that led to my actions with Alan. I meet Alan outside the venue of Jake's brother's wedding. I had to step out because I couldn't bear the applause and sweet talk for the newlyweds, especially witnessing Jake happily teasing the bride and groom. I realized that if I stayed there, I might go talk to him. I didn't notice Alan right away because I was still upset. Then someone came up to me and asked if I wasn't a fan of weddings. The question surprised me, and I laughed. I looked at him with curiosity. He was well-dressed and good-looking. He introduced himself, and I did the same. He told me he thought I was too beautiful to wear a frown, and I blushed. He said he thought I was too beautiful to have a frown on my face, and I blushed. We continued talking, and I found myself captivated by him. We swapped contact information, and then I went back inside. I can't say if it was because of his wonderfully expressed compliments or because I was upset with Jake. But I caught myself thinking about Alan. So when my aunt asked about the wedding, I ended up telling her about Alan instead. She was excited and suggested that I keep in touch with him. I asked her what would happen with Jake, and she said it didn't matter if neither of them knew about each other. I told my best friend about it, and she laughed, saying I was close to getting married, but still interested in someone else. I asked her where the ring on my finger was. In the following days, Alan and I chatted on the phone. He was charming, and I found myself really liking him. We see each other 2 times in a week. It was simple to plan because Jake was really busy with work and didn't have much time for me. Instead, he sent bouquets of flowers. When Alan said he wanted a real relationship and was thinking about settling down soon, I felt so excited that it felt like my insides were going to burst. It was as if our stars aligned. The day he officially asked me to be his girlfriend was the first time we got close physically. Later, I cried because I felt guilty. I had never cheated on Jake before, but I didn't want to be single forever. I called my aunt and poured out my heart to her. She suggested that I wait until I was certain Alan was about to propose before breaking up with Jake. So, I kept going in my relationship with Alan, even though it felt both good and wrong. The guilt made me stay away from Jake, even when he wanted to see me. I knew that if I got too close to him, I would crumble and confess everything to him. Eventually, he became persistent about seeing me and asked why I was avoiding him. I didn't have a real reason, so I told him it was because my pedicure services were taking up my time. He looked at me with a knowing expression, like he could understand everything about me. I got scared and called my aunt afterward. After Jake left, she told me to be careful. A few days later, Sami called me to let me know that Jake wanted to propose to me and make it a surprise. Jake wasn't sure how to do it, so he asked for Sami's assistance. I felt thankful that she informed me because I realized I needed to break up with Alan before moving forward with this new chapter. I was too afraid to tell him in person, so I sent him a message instead. I thought he might call, so I blocked his number. I went to stay with my aunt, just in case he he tried to find me at my apartment. Luckily, my roommates didn't know where my aunt lived, so they couldn't tell anyone. On the day Jake proposed, I was incredibly happy, and I almost accidentally revealed that Sami had told me about the surprise. It was just the two of us during the proposal, and it was incredibly beautiful. My 2-carat diamond ring, a gift from Jake, is definitely a keeper. I felt deeply moved when he shared that he waited to propose because he wanted to make sure he was ready to be the best man for my love. However, my actions of avoiding him in the past week made him decide to propose sooner than he had initially planned. I cried tears of both happiness and guilt. We're planning to visit the rest of his family in the upcoming week. Jake's family house was quite large, and from the few times I had visited, I knew that there were always family members coming and going, so I was ready for that. What caught me off guard was seeing Alan there, being introduced as Jake's second cousin who lives in Germany. I was in a daze and didn't even realize my legs were moving until I found myself rushing to the nearest bathroom, away from Jake's and Alan's shocked expressions. I needed to collect myself and figure out what to do. I tried calling my aunt, but I couldn't reach her. So, I called Sami and had to begin explaining everything from the moment I met Alan because she was only aware of our first encounter. Sami expressed disappointment that I hadn't told her earlier, but she urged me to stay composed. She hoped Alan wouldn't say anything right away, so I could leave Jake's house and head straight to her place. That way, we could figure out how to handle the situation and reassure Alan. I agreed with Sami's advice and ended the call. I went outside to talk to Jake and let him know I was feeling nauseous and needed to go home. However, Jake was standing by the door, about to head to the bathroom. He just stared at me as if I was a stranger. I called his name, but he turned away. I hurried after him, but I didn't want to cause a scene, so I kept walking, trying to process his sudden change in demeanor. I took a moment to compose myself and then looked around for Alan. When I couldn't find him, I continued searching for Jake, but he was nowhere to be found. I was puzzled by his behavior. I wondered if Alan had said something to him. I'd always thought men weren't usually so talkative about personal matters. Could he have heard what I told Sami? I realized my mistake in confiding in Sami while I was at Jake's home. I felt an urgent need to find out if Alan had revealed anything to Jake. Update. Yesterday evening, I went to Jake's house because I had been trying to call him, and he hadn't been picking up. I spoke to his doorman, who informed me that he hadn't returned from work yet. Worried, I rushed to his workplace to catch him before he left, but I couldn't find him there either. I called my aunt to update her because I had already told her what had happened earlier. She advised me to call Alan and ensure he would cooperate, even if it meant offering him closure one last time. I thought it was a good suggestion, so I dialed Alan's number. He answered on the first ring, and I apologized for abruptly cutting off contact. He told me I had some nerve to call him after what I did. He asked me never to call again and cut the call. I rushed to the apartment where Alan was staying and rang the doorbell. Upon opening the door, I was shocked to see Jake, his brother, and a bruised Alan standing in front of me. I didn't know what to do, so I just ran back out. My aunt suggested that I should have come up with an excuse for being at Alan's apartment, even if it meant lying, like saying I was tracking Jake's phone. But I felt that the truth was probably already known. I questioned why I couldn't have been more patient and talked to Jake about his reasons for not proposing instead of rushing into another relationship with Alan. Is there a way for us to get back together? Sami told me a story about a man who gave his wife money even after cheated. We're not married yet, so maybe there's still hope for our relationship. I'm in a dilemma because Jake hasn't said a word to me. He isn't returning my calls, and he hasn't even asked to meet up. How much does he know? Alan blocked my number. I don't know if he did this for sure. What should I do now? Can anyone give me advice on what to do next? Edit. Jake finally called me back and wanted to meet up. Sami gave me advice on what to say and even offered to come along and stay nearby. She was disappointed that I hadn't told her about my situation, but she still wanted things to work out between Jake and me. Jake said he just wanted the engagement ring back. He thought he was the one who didn't deserve me, but now he felt it was the other way around. It turns out Jake overheard some of what I told Sami in the bathroom at his family's house when he was coming to check on me, and it made him very angry. Thinking that Alan had betrayed him, he ended up punching Alan. Fortunately, Jake's brother, who was very close to Alan, and the reason Alan had come back in the first place, intervened and prevented a full-blown fight from breaking out. They all gathered at Alan's place, where he explained everything that had happened. Jake also expressed his frustration with me for almost causing a rift between him and his cousin. He said I was a hoe, and I was going to pay for what I did. I tried to beg with him, but he forcibly removed the ring from my finger and ended up bruising me in the process. At this point, I'm unsure about what to do. If I had known Alan was at the wedding, I never would have talked to him in the first place. I don't want to go back to the beginning, guys. Is it possible to get Jake to forgive me? Opinion. You cheated on your caring boyfriend, created chaos with his family, and now you're seeking advice. Here it is. Reflect on your actions, learn from your mistakes, and strive not to create such a huge mess in your relationships in the future.